All right, welcome everybody. We are going to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is approval of minutes. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written from April 11th public session, April 11th non-public session, April 22nd public session, and April 22nd non-public session?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I do have a change.
Oh, never mind.
You can second it, then we can discuss it. I just want to make sure Gabe St. Pierre and Amanda Chafee get added to the.
So they weren't here during the meeting. They left before the meeting started when we made introductions. I swear that, so Joe actually asked as well. Their oath of office was taken before the meeting, so I did not, that's why they're not included in the minutes. I'm certainly happy to add them, but during the meeting, they were not here. They left prior to the start of the meeting.
Can we just note that they left prior to the meeting, just so that they get put in with the budget committee? Is there a way to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll make those adjustments. We have all in favor? Aye,
That's correct.
that's correct. All right. Second order of business is the report of the administrators.
As you know, last year we joined the Conval lawsuit. I just wanted to give you an update. It's still ongoing. They have hired a Dr. Baker, who was working for the legislature on the funding commission report. And he actually stated that he thought that an average cost of an average adequate education was $10,810. So with that being said, I'm sure that, you know, when you look at the cost per pupil for each one of our districts, what the state does give us is not really equaling that $10,000. So that's going to be one of the bases as they move ahead with the lawsuit. It is also hoped that the lawsuit would come to trial by January of 23. So it's going to be ongoing, and I'll certainly keep you posted as every month when we get updates. I also, in your package, I included some information about our COVID numbers. We still meet every day at 1 o'clock. We talk about the number of active COVID cases in our district, the impact that it's having on our personnel. And we're doing, we're doing the best that we can. As you know, in the Northeast and many of our communities, COVID numbers are going up. We just ask everyone to continue to be as safe as possible. If you're sick, not to come to school. I also would like to congratulate Waffle. They had Waffle Elementary School recently had an ES visit. They did exceptionally well. And I would like to tell you some of the things that was reported and commended in the report. They thought it was Waffle Elementary School had a positive, respectful environment. They appreciated the opportunities to meet with members of the community. They also liked the idea of how focused people were on opportunities to demonstrate that every child is known in the building. They also made mention about the opportunities that students have to be active learners, to develop partnerships with parents and also with businesses. And they also mentioned the effective crisis response team that has been put into Waffle Elementary. They also mentioned the targeted training to ensure safety of students and staff in the building. I will send that to you. Please take the time to read it. It was an excellent report. You've done very well, and congratulations to all the staff in Waffle that put this together. There are a couple areas that they would like Waffle to do a little bit more work on, and they'll develop a school action plan. And those two areas are the curriculum and also developing a school improvement growth plan. So again, congratulations. Moving on to grant and ESSER and funding. one of the things that I put in your package was a contract to do an air quality assessment here at the high school. We would like permission to sign a contract with Johnson Control. We anticipate that this funding for this project would come from the ESSER 3 funds, which is geared to improving quality of environments for students. And I also put a sample report in your package as well as information about what the contract, what the deliverables are of the contract. This in no way mandates or it doesn't, all we're doing here is getting an active assessment of the air and the evaluation of the HVAC systems in the school and a plan to move forward. And that will come back to the board before any other additional, commitments are made. Jamie?
So, Chair, would you like us to discuss them as they come up, or do you want us to wait until we go into the motion?
Why don't we wait? Because also I think that, Joe and also Craig were part of that meeting and they can answer a lot of the questions because there was an awful lot of questions.
Very good.
I'm just right now telling you about what I'm looking for. I did send you some information so you could actually read what the contract was and give you the background information. Also with the ESSER funding, we're doing a lot of academic supports. We started this past year hiring interventionists. Last summer, we did summer programs across the district from first grade all the way up to 12th grade, and they were very well received. So again, we want to use the funding for that additional support of students academically. And we hope this summer to do a summer program at the middle level. It will be held in Vilas. The high school, elementary schools will do Title I and ESY, extended learning opportunities for some of our students will also be held in various schools. We also provide transportation, and we believe that we'll be able to get a grant from the USDA food source, and we hope to have meals for our students as well. Another area that we would like to look at and spend funding on is the bus transportation. As you know, our bus fleet was, we did last year go and buy 11 new buses, but we still have 2 buses that are quite old and they really do need to be replaced. They have high mileage, they're constantly being in for repair, and we do not feel that at this time they're going to pass inspection because of the rust that's underneath the buses and the sides. So with that being said, we really do need another bus to transport our students, and I was able to get 1 bus into the ESSER grant for funding. And there is 1 more bus that we would like to purchase, and we're going to talk to the school board or ask permission to use district funds for that additional bus. I also gave you in your package invoices and a purchase customer proposal so you can see what the prices were. And our next thing on our report is really the high school updates. On May 11th, which is Wednesday, we are doing a job fair here at the high school. So if any board members would like to come, we would really enjoy having you here. It's from 11 to 1, and it's from various communities that are really supporting hiring youngsters in our own community. So I hope people are able to attend. The other thing for the high school is sports. Mr. Dansrell, our athletic director, is here tonight to answer any questions or to tell you a little bit more about his proposal changing the banner system that we have in the high school gym. As you go in now, it's really sometimes very difficult to see the different awards and mentions that we've had over the years, and his system certainly will answer that and provide a lot of clarity to what is the awards that our students have been able to achieve. So Gordon, I know you have a presentation. The board has some of your pitches, so it's easier to follow, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
You stand over here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, the proposal, right now, as you go into the gym, you can see there's different color banners. And then like there's some track banners over there, and there's some track banners over there, and soccer banners there, and soccer there. So what a lot of schools are doing, or what we talk about with ADs when we talk, is doing an add-a-year banner. And so what it would be, and I have extra pictures here so you can see it up better, is what you do is each year, say like this happens to be baseball. So if they win, let's say they win this year, then we get a sticker and we put the 2022 sticker on there. The cost now will be 13, as of right now, it's $13 shipping. Whereas if we get separate banners, it'd be $150 the average banner. And not only that, but we have like 12 more banners to put up in the gym, which we do not have any room for now. So this is one proposal we're coming up with. And as you can see, we staggered them. I mean, it's better. I don't know if you guys want to see the pictures even closer up. It'd be more uniform. They'd be all the same color. You know, it's like some fans that come to the game, they see that, oh, there's soccer over there, soccer. Where here, they can track it on one banner. So that's what we'd like to propose to make it a lot more neater, more professional, and all the same colors.
Jamie.
Thank you. Do we have an idea of approximate cost
Yes,
to do it?
yeah, I have the proposal right here from Netta Robinson from Team Graphics. Yeah, it all depends on how many banners you get.
So say we did it all,
Right now, their quote was $52.50.
so $5,250.
Yeah, and right now, if we bought 13 banners at $150, that would be, yeah, I mean, I just can't see him buying them and all of a sudden trying to go with these.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we also talked about, 2,000 point, Fall Mountains have a 2,000 point scorer. And we have a plaque that's about this big, with 1,000 point scorers. It's hidden in the thing. We have a banner here for the 1,000 point, 2,000 point scorers. We like to recognize, and a lot of schools do too. I mean, this is like your individual banners that will be. So, and I can pass these around so you can see them better.
So you'll have the banner up for the 2,000 point.
2,000, yeah. What we do is we put the individual's name. I can say Jason Waysville. The year he did, I think it was 1993, and then it's 2000. I think he had 2005 points. I remember right. And then you put all the other scorers, their points, and the year that they accomplished. We just had I don't know if you guys know, we had a 1,000 point scorer this year for girls basketball. She did it with 16 less games because of the COVID season we lost. She still scored over 1,000 points, 1,108 points. And I've also been asked, but it's up to you guys, people have asked, do we put all the names of people that are in the Athletic Hall of Fame? Do we make a banner and put their names on? That's a discussion. Yeah. So,
Just a follow-up. So if it's 5,250, if we were to contemplate the one like you mentioned, what is a single one to add?
put my glasses on. 335.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
If I could add a few things to that. So the individual team plaques are still going to be placing those up in the cafeteria. That's still going to remain a way of having individual team championships in the cafeteria that we've been doing for a number of years. And I think the Gordon's point about not having sufficient room for all the banners, so that's just testament to our sports programs that we keep earning these championship banners, but we're not able to put them up in the gym because we're running out of space. And then another question that comes up when schools contemplate this is what do we do with the banners that we take down? The answer to that question is we're going to be keeping those because those come in handy for celebrations, like when we're going to be planning our 60th anniversary a few years to be able to have various sports teams come back, and whether they halftime in a football game during homecoming or things like that have them around for celebrations. So we won't be disposing of them, and we won't be doing anything with them other than storing them and having available for future celebrations.
Is this something we put in the budget for the next year? Is this something we've already appropriated for, or is this coming out of the budget we have currently?
That's gonna have to be for the next budget.
So you're hoping to add it in?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here's a sample of the material.
I'm gonna pass it along though.
Jamie, did you have another question?
That was
Yeah, you're
actually
okay.
my question as well. I had another one, but I think it's probably not appropriate until we get a financial person maybe. I was curious whether or not we allow for, transfers of funds anymore, because $5,250 out of a $30 million budget is not a lot of money. I don't know why we're waiting.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion? Do we do a motion
To accept.
To transfer
to
funds
do
from
it?
somewhere?
Just to let the high school go ahead and do this. I mean, we have 2 buses for $97,000 that want to be spent, and our athletic director and our high school principal is asking for $5,000 to free up the gym and make it look more professional, more appropriate, and to be able to honor students specifically that have achieved more than others. So I don't see why we can't find $5,000.
I can't stop you from doing a motion, right?
You can say no.
No, I think that we can, or did you want to?
No, I was going to
Okay.
say that.
Yes, Jamie.
I just question whether we need one. If they're allowed to do transfers, then, and there's, surplus in another line, then it makes this type of expenditure, which will save money in the long run, makes sense to me.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. So I guess,
Maybe
why don't, yes,
We also wanted to make sure that we have the opportunities to explain to the board and also to our community the changeover. At one time, we immediately bought the banner and it was posted, and then it kind of got moved. This is a real change in the way that we're honoring and recognizing our athletes, and we wanted it to be known to everybody. It's the amount is small. It's certainly something that is totally within. We can find the budget money, but it's also the mentality of the change, and that's really the reason why that we're talking about it.
Well, if it makes it clearer for Misty, I make a motion to let Gordon go ahead and order the new banners for $5,250 in order to make the changeover quickly.
I'll amend it to say from already appropriated funds via transfer.
Excellent.
are you seconding it?
I
As
will
well.
second that. Sure.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. Well, thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Go get your banners.
Oh, thank you.
Just make sure you save the old one.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about region? What do you want, the old one?
I don't want them, but
There's one more topic that we'd like to talk about, and that's middle level sports. Right now, each one of our middle level towns, or schools that are in each one of our towns have separate sports teams. But our athletic counselors and with our athletic director have met, and they would like to combine it across the district. So there's opportunities that we would have a district level team
In middle school?
in middle school, yes.
Can I-
Yeah.
We do that now already with football, cross-country running, cross-country skiing,
Yeah.
track and field. So we'd like to do it for soccer, basketball, baseball, softball. We've been doing it basically for the past 8-9 years with Violet and Walpole with like the baseball and softball. I mean, what it came to my idea a few years ago is we were cutting some kids from one school, but on the other school, we only could play 8v8, 9v9 in soccer. So we don't have enough on this end, but we have too many with cut kids loose on this side. Some of our ideas, we talked about, like for soccer, and people ask about transportation. Well, soccer teams, we could play all the games up here because we have a facility. And transportation, those soccer players would be coming up here with the football and cross-country team. Then you would have savings, you wouldn't have to line Walpole Field, you wouldn't have to line Charlestown Field, you wouldn't have to line Violet's Field. And all the games would be here and be closer, then the student athletes would be playing together rather than fighting against each other, all year, and then coming up here and we're all supposed to be one team. Another pro we talked about is more playing time, student athletes to their skill levels. Volleyball games, we could play here at the high school instead of just having one game, we could do a double header. I don't know if we want to call it ABC, blue, white, gold, or blue, white, whichever we name the schools, we could have one school playing like Centipede volleyball here, the next school playing Claremont on the same night. So we would save on that part too. And we would be part of like the CBL league with Claremont, Newport, Centipede, there's lots of 24 schools in that league. So, I mean, one of the cons about it is if Marcus and I are brothers and, he's on the, I'll say A team and I'm on the B team, they might not be playing on the same night, but we're gonna work out the best, and we would have that conversation with that parent.
I would prefer that we slow down. There's more cons than what you're mentioning. Number one, there are numerous parents who are already struggling to get their children to practice, whether it's track or if there is another sport up here. And I understand you said they would be bused. We can't get busing to Patch Park, let alone this is from Charlestown. So you're asking Charlestown kids to go from, for parents to go from the school to Patch Park, they already have to transport. But I mean, for Charlestown to drive all the way up here for middle school sports is an awful lot. And I would hope that those conversations would be had with individual communities before it's just decided.
Yeah, well, we do that, like I said, we already do that now with half the sports. We already do that with football. We already do that with cross-country running. We already do that with cross-country skiing. We already have that with track and field.
Yeah, and football gets transported. All the other sports, the parents are having to carpool to get there.
Track, they get here, I mean, Charlestown right now, we're in a situation that's 4:30, 4:40, and we've been improvising.
With parents driving.
No, buses have been getting,
There are some sports that parents drive from Charlestown that they have to carpool, because I've asked the question, because parents are
for skiing,
sometimes.
sometimes the skiing does that because of the daylight. Because they can't get here at 4:30, as you know, November, December, January, it's dark, probably about 4 o'clock.
Jamie,
So I don't have students in the school district, nor do I have children that play in any of the sports. So my suggestion on this matter, before we make any big decisions, would be to have a poll sent out, perhaps, to the parents of each of the middle school district areas with some simple questions that perhaps we could review before it went out. Asking, what is the feeling on the matter, right? I mean, are we, do we want to, I think we need to poll the parents, because, it's the parents and their children who are gonna be mostly affected by it. So I think a simple poll out to them, asking, we could come up with 4, maybe 5 simple questions. And then we could have a serious discussion based on the information or data that we got.
But the other sports like basketball, we'd be using Violet's, Walpole, we'd still be using the same 3 schools. They wouldn't be coming here.
yeah, I would support your poll. I think we need a lot more information. We need a lot more information. That's what I would say.
So do we have an athletic advisory committee?
You do.
Yeah, we do.
Well,
The
not at the
principals have
school
all
level.
met with the athletic directors about this. And the hard part is Charlestown kids get cut. This is the first year in 10 years we've had, or more, that we've had a baseball team. We have had at Biles, maybe 1 or 2 kids that want to play baseball. There's no transportation for them. Their parents have to get them to Walpole. And we just barely had enough for soccer this year. So that's the hard part, is that the smaller schools are not getting the numbers. And, we're putting, this way, the kids would be divided up by ability. We're putting, just to make enough kids on a team, we're drawing from 5th graders that really aren't sometimes athletically equipped to play against 8th graders. So I know in Walpole's had some issues with getting teams. And as much as I love having a school team, it's really not been happening very well in the smaller schools.
So I understand the challenges. Again, I think a poll would give us, what you're seeing is from one side, right? I think we need to hear from the parent side. And then it'll give us data so that we can make an informed decision about what the best course of action.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know specifically what sports. I think there are massive unintended consequences to this. I think there will be pushback from parents if this was approved tonight. I also think that this is a symptom of something else that we could have a larger discussion about. I'm not prepared to make any decisions on this now.
And you guys received this where soccer would play, where basketball would.
No, we didn't, I don't have anything in my packet about your presentation this evening.
I did get it.
We didn't have anything more.
So I think we're gonna have another discussion anyway, because it seems like everybody on the board, well, I can't speak for everybody, but the tone seems as though we'd like more information. I really don't think we could move forward without parental input. That would not be good. So that information that you have, I would also suggest that maybe we do put together a committee to look at this that could then come back, as part of this report.
Well,
Sarah.
it sounds as if, you have a group that's working on it. Why don't we just ask them to do what we're asking? I mean, the
Yeah.
administrators in Gordon are working on it.
The athletic director.
So, I mean, you have this group that is already doing
We've been
that,
working
so,
on it probably over the last at least year and a half.
yeah, so, it seems to me that it would make sense to ask them to get more information from, have you done a poll of the parents? Have you
No.
specific?
I didn't know that the administration was working on this for a year and a half.
No, but that's okay.
As a parent, I'm saying as a parent, I've never heard these discussions whatsoever.
Okay.
So,
Jamie.
So I just make a quick suggestion and then I think we could probably move on because it sounds like we're all in the same,
Right.
we're in
Right.
agreement. Perhaps the group that they have that has been working on it, maybe one person from here could join in and give a little guidance on questions or whatever, if anybody has time.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't currently have a child that is in there, but I did have a child that was in there in the schools that were smaller. And we did cross country and we did cross country skiing and we did track and they would not have done it if they hadn't been district teams. So, and there were great benefits to it when they came up to the high school because they already knew kids from Charlestown, they already knew kids from Walpole, and that was where their friend group came from when they were up here at the high school. So there are positives to it as well. So
When do they meet? When do you meet? Gail, when do you meet?
when do we meet? I don't know. We meet like, is it-
We usually try to meet before the season and after
Yeah.
the season, so like August, June. we meet again.
it's usually after school, we meet.
Okay, so you'll have a meeting in June, maybe the meeting in June, we could, invite one of the board members to come, and in the meantime, maybe we could send some questions. to
Yeah,
them to
I
try to
would,
put something
I
together.
would volunteer to, I mean, I I'm very active in coaching and involved in the sports scene. Shelley is as well.
You know, the other thing, we're really having a hard time finding officials, like umpires. So when you have 3 different teams, you know, we're scrambling to find, you know, there's pluses and minuses to both. I mean, I love having my own school sports, but you know, what we're finding, the trend has been really low, and it's hard to get reps, it's hard to get, and we're all competing for the same people.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned the league, so that's like the Newport, so you have
Well, that's a
multiple
league.
parents that would be,
That's what you're, I'm just trying to keep everything local.
yeah,
You know, I want the kids playing more on the fields and on the courts than on the bus.
certainly a proponent of that more. I'm just thinking about, you know, you've got, and it would be the same if you had North Charlestown parents that were, and if we were joining a Keene league, so you have parents from North Charlestown going to see their kids' games, that like, you know, if they're in the league where it's Keene and
Or
Monadnock.
maybe I shouldn't say a league, it's a league, you know, there's much, you know, for the smaller schools, you know, there's Webster, Goshen, Unity, Cornish, you know, the schools that are closely to that.
We're not gonna make a decision.
No.
Yeah, but I'm just, yes.
So yeah, we'll get together, think of some questions, and I will touch base with you and all the administrators on that. So, is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon.
Can we send you questions if we have them?
Absolutely not. Thank you, Chief. Yes.
Thank you, Gordon.
Oh, you're welcome.
Dave, next is that.
Yes.
All right, Dave, you are up for the.
Okay, good evening. I'll start this by saying, I think everybody got the electronic report.
I added it when we got here,
It's-
so it is in your folder now.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll give you a real quick summary of what I think. Essentially, what you have in front of you is a year-to-date expenditure report by location, and under each location, it'll go by function and by object code. So it gives you an idea of all the locations and where they stand. The bottom line right now is in your budget of $30+ million. Right now, we have a balance of about $1.260 million left at this point. We still have some unfinished business as we go forward. Everybody wants to really take a look at this and say, where are we going to end up at the end of the year? And I'm not prepared to give that number, but I will remind you of a couple of things. In past years, what you've done when you've honored the warrant articles. So when we, in March, you passed $500,000 worth of funding going toward the trust funds, if in fact the money was available at the end of the year. That's going to be a combination when we talk about money available. It's going to be what wasn't spent and any excess revenues. So if we just look at the expenditures, if you look at the $500,000 there, and then if you, you have a proposal in front of you for an additional bus out of the general fund. Those two things take about $600,000. So it leaves about $660,000 worth of unexpended monies, if you will, trying to forecast out a little further. So it gives you an idea. One, you'll be able to, pretty certain you're going to be able to fulfill the commitment to the trust funds. And at the same time, there will be money left at the end of the year that'll go back in the unassigned fund balance. But I'm not prepared to tell you exactly what that is now, but you're not in any danger of not having money going back. It will not be of the same magnitude as you had a year ago. So you had $1.3 million of unassigned fund balance. You certainly will not have that this year. So I guess, are there any questions or direction you'd like to give?
I I think that, that thankfully, we had kids in school all year, so, therefore, we wouldn't have as big of as many funds left over, so, in terms of that.
So just to kind of go along with that, Sarah,
Uh-huh.
just to go along with that, of that $1.2 million, about 780,000 of that is in some sort of salary. It would be the 100 series in the object code. And then there's another $138,000 worth of associated benefits that are attributed to that. So when I look at that, I'm saying of the 1.2, what's driving that? And mostly it's salaries. And we talked about this earlier in the year, the fact that you've had positions you couldn't fill. There are a lot of struggles to find people to fill all the positions we had. So that's some of the driving force in there. But it gives you an idea out of the 1.2 million, 26 million that's left, what's driving that. It really is salary and benefits. And not because I think you over budgeted, it's more because you budgeted for positions you felt you would need, and a lot of those positions you haven't been able to fill.
So Dave, basically then what you're telling us is there's about 920,000 at this point that probably will not be spent down. Maybe let's say another 50, okay, for substitutes or whatever. And then the remaining 340,000 is probably sitting in discretionary areas where some of that might go. Or have you already shut down your accounts payable modules? Has everybody booked out what they need for the year?
We're still working through that, but we did have a discussion on just spending what you needed to get to the end of the year. And so we've had that discussion. Did we freeze the budget? No. It just really was the issue of being able to complete the year, just as you're suggesting. So that's what we've done so far. Again, because I hadn't cycled here before and haven't had the advantage of knowing what happens in these 2 months, because that's critical. We're getting some, there's still some crazy stuff going on. Fuel is driving us kind of over the edge. And we're, on busing and so forth, that continues to be a problem. And when those bills come in, you have to pay what they are. So there's no danger in not having enough to get through. But for the most part, the big ticket items, unless they're, have been accounted for, they're either encumbered or they're before, something like the school bus, that's before the board tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Don't forget to subtract the 5,250 we just gave.
Yes, I will. That's in the discretionary line area of the 340.
And just one other point that you brought up, Jamie, about just one other point that you had brought up about transfers. At this point in time, really the transfers are, we can make the transfers, but I'm really, rather than do the transfers, I just want to make sure we get them in the right lines. If there's supply, they go into that, they're accounted for someplace in the budget, because regardless, once we've approved it, the expenditure is there. That's all we track at the end of the year. So at this point in time, unless there's something really major or we've got a problem, that $5,250 will just be dropped into the appropriate account.
Okay, yeah, and just overspend it if it's close.
Yes.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I have a comment.
You may.
Thanks. I would just like to express that for next month, when we get this report, if we could get it a little earlier, I would have liked to look through it for
That's
any
fine. I'll take
questions.
responsibility for that. I missed it and it didn't get into the folder, so.
I appreciate
Dave
that.
had it to you in time. Had it to you in time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just really important for me to be able to sit with
Yeah.
these things before the meeting. So I appreciate that.
Misty's slap.
With all her other things, I will let it slide.
All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Craig,
Yeah.
under the section 3, you went right to the business report, but number 2 and 3 is the bus purchase and Johnson control assessment discussion.
Okay. So are we looking to approve those or are we just discussing them?
Well, they're in the consent agenda, so I'm assuming that the report part is the discussion. And I guess if,
So I would open it up for discussion.
Did Lori want to go down through? I think it got hijacked when Gordon took over and he didn't come back.
It's fine. We also wanted to make sure that the committees, the facility committee had a chance to weigh in and discuss the proposal for the air quality assessment. That's one of the things I'd like to do. So maybe we can start with that, and members from the facility committee can also answer the questions with me on the air quality assessment.
Yeah.
Johnson Controls System has been working in our district now for about almost a year. As you know, they put a lot of energy saving devices into our buildings, the low energy lights, the ceiling of the buildings, and also looking at our building maintenance systems and the software that we're using. The next leg of our journey at this present time is really to look at the air quality that we have for the systems that we have in each one of our buildings. Our facilities committee have been meeting with Johnson Control now for some time. We looked at, do we want to do all of the schools? Do we want to set a priority list? Do we want to take one school at a time? The committee, after many discussions, decided that they would like to look at the high school first to do a air quality assessment, to look at the systems. Are they operational? What would cause us to upgrade to another level, and et cetera. This proposal basically will give us some guidelines and the answers that we've been asking for. I don't know if Joe or Craig want to add a little bit more there.
Well, for me, I just wanted to add in that I think that the air quality is probably the most important thing that we have to do. It's been 2 years in a pandemic, and we've seen the results of that. It's like, at least 80% of the infections were caused indoors to lousy air quality. This place has lousy air quality. I think it's really important that we do it. My fellow members on the facilities committee think that there's other things that are more important, but I'm sticking to my guns. I think this is probably the most important thing that we have to do. This can help. And I think a lot of the students agreed with me that the air quality in here is bad. I think I stand with them. I think this should be done.
So is this discussion just about the high school?
It is now. Well, that's what it's been reduced to. But
Yeah,
Why
so-
does the high school supersede all the other schools?
well, because a lot of the other schools don't have, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the older schools don't have ventilation at all. We would eat up more ESSER funds than anywhere near where we have. I mean, we could eat all of the ESSER funds up in Vilas, all by itself. Just putting in ventilation there.
Because there's no ventilation. No, I completely understand. I'm wondering why we're only talking about doing an assessment for one school in the whole district, Lori.
Originally, we had talked about putting all of our schools on a priority list. The high school was the highest, the next was groups of 5s. We wanted to look at CMS, Walpole Elementary, CPS, and the high school, and maybe it was groups of 4. These are the schools that had the larger population, the newer schools, and there were one from each one of the community. That would cost us well over $100,000 to do that kind of assessment. When we met again with the committee, they said, well, let's take it slow. Let's take one at a time. What exactly money-wise are we talking about? We really have no idea. And so what we thought we would do is start with the assessment at the high school as a learning process. would give us the information that we needed and would help develop a plan. There was other discussions that we had at the facilities committee area. We talked about the asbestos that we have in our buildings. What would it cost us to look at all the asbestos, and would, can we get ESSER funds to help us to remove the asbestos across the district? We also talked about, outside learning classrooms that we could actually build in different areas across the district. So we weren't just filtering in on the high school. Our proposal right now, yes, it is only the high school because that is really our stepping stone to bring us to the next level of better understanding about how you go about improving air quality and the cost of it.
Jamie.
So I vaguely remember seeing, and I don't know where it lives on the website, and I'm sorry, so this is a question because I don't know where it is. I vaguely remember seeing that your former business administrator had done it wasn't a true facilities audit, but he had done a series of documents that prioritized or put in a list format the issues that I believe he probably would have discussed with your maintenance director. I don't know where to find them, but I know I've seen them. So I think it's like a strategic plan for the buildings. And it was hanging dollar amounts of numbers on the different areas that needed to be addressed.
Yeah, we have a capital.
Capital
Yeah.
improvement plan, okay. So I've got to think that some of that had to have been done based on somebody's factual data. I'm curious where that is, if you can point me in the right direction so I could take a look at it again. Because I'd really like to see if that's near the top of the list when it was originally put out for the high school building. Secondly, I guess my second question with regards to this, I read through, the proposal, and I think from my own personal standpoint, as a business administrator who oversees maintenance and grounds and all of that for 4 schools up north, I think that's a very exciting proposal. I'm curious to know if there have been other districts and or schools who have embarked on this Veridart Safe Traces product. I think it's very interesting. I went out and read some of the data on it because I had not seen it for myself before. It has not come across my desk. I'm curious where Ashra stands on that and whether they recognize the claim of the product. It's just a curiousness for myself, because as we were moving through COVID and air quality issues, which were front and center in my face in every single meeting I went through in 2020 for the 4 buildings that I oversaw, everything we did and every decision we made was based on ASHRA guidelines, which is the standard in the industry for HVAC. So I see that the National Institute of Health supports it, which was interesting. And I see that they were using some of the ANSI and ASHRA standards for the ventilation of healthcare facilities. So I think this is a very interesting proposal. I think that the dollar amount that they're looking to charge is not outrageous. I'd be curious what the cost would be for all of the schools to be done at the same time, just because we're sitting on so much surplus. So that's a whole lot of statements and questions rolled up into one for what it's worth. Okay.
A lot of those questions were brought forward by the facilities committee. Money-wise, we're not really sure. We didn't get a quote for each one of the schools, or they estimated that it would be well over 100,000. Conversations were kind of rolled back as why do we want to spend all of this money on an assessment when we might not be able to fix all of these issues. So that was one of the reasons why we rolled it back from our priority schools to 1 school. We wanted to make sure that we would have enough money to address the concerns that this report would really, give us that.
And
kind of
that's
knowledge base.
understandable, but I think if you're gonna have the teams here, you don't know what you don't know until you've done the testing. it looks very exciting to me. In fact, I'm gonna go back and start looking into it more in depth. Because I thought it was an interesting concept and product, and I just am curious what their depth is, how much it's been used since they rolled it out.
Johnson Control has been in here looking at our buildings basically on the energy, but they have not done a complete assessment across the district. They were looking at the basic things that you would need to really improve your air quality. We don't have a lot of HVAC or ventilation systems in here. But what we did with the stage one, with the energy project, we put funds away, and we also purchased the building or the maintenance computerized system in each one of the buildings so we can expand on it. So we're doing it in stages. And Johnson Control is more than happy to come and talk to you about it. If you want, I mean, I like the idea. I wanted all the buildings to have an assessment. It's going to be costly, it's going to be timely. And I just want to make sure that we at least have an idea of what we're getting ourselves into when we do it that way.
Right, because you have a short period of time in which to spend that round of money.
So I'm gonna just give my sort of step back, and we're kind of jumping all over the agenda here a little bit. And I think kind of would have been good to maybe pull that vote from the consent agenda and then maybe put it after the committee report. But the thought process, stepping back here and why we're going high school only, was if we did do the assessments at all the school, we were talking well over $100,000. And that with our conversations in strategic planning coming up and the possibilities of, possible consolidation in a strategic planning conversation, that spending any money on the school, and yes, we have these ESSER funds, but to say that it's like, that could be used on something else potentially. So when you're looking at a school that was built in 1950, I think that we can make an assumption that the air quality is probably not the best. So focusing on this school that we are absolutely positive that we are going to use for the foreseeable future, that was the thought process and where we went with the facilities committee, that we want to get a handle on this school, see what kind of report we get back. If we went forward with the use of the ESSER 3 funds on the entire HVAC system here, we're probably going to use up all of it at this school. And what we had discussed in that meeting as well was, well, we don't want this to be the only option that we bring to the board. This is a option and it may be the best, and we know that it will get approved through the grant, whereas some of the other things we're not positive would be approved through the grant. So we had discussed asbestos abatement and getting quotes on the entire, every school in the district. We're not positive that would be approved through the grants. We would have to try, and it may or may not be. There's a timeline that we have that these funds need to be used. So if we went through the grant process for the asbestos abatement and they denied it, then that sets us back at stage one. And now we're, maybe moving forward with the air quality again. There was polling that went out, 2 students in the community. One of the things was outdoor classroom space, a pavilion. These were just ideas. They're not necessarily like, hey, we want to do this, but we need to bring other options to the board rather than just, this is what we're going to spend ESSER 3 money on. So those are the things that the board, after we get the air, we felt like the air quality assessment was at least step one. We need to move forward with something. It's approximately 1% of the ESSER 3 funds to get the air quality assessment done for the high school. So we felt like that was reasonable to move this forward to just see where we can go from here. if we get the quotes back for the asbestos abatement, maybe we get a better idea of whether or not that's going to be approved. But when we look at all of these potential projects as a board, then we'll be able to weigh them against each other. So if the idea of removing all asbestos from every school in the district sounds great, but then you have to weigh that with the possibility that it may not actually be approved. And how far back does that set us? Are we even able to improve the air quality and get that grant funding through at that point in time? There was a lot that we discussed, but the biggest thing is that we wanted to come back and say, we have been, weeding these options out as much as possible, and that we wanted to have different options. So this really is just step one. We see how that goes, and hopefully we vote on the actual project at a later date.
I'm okay with it staying in the consent agenda.
Did they give you an idea of other places they have done it or not?
For the ESSER, I'm pretty sure that it would get
No,
approved.
I mean Johnson Controls partnering with Safe Traces for this.
They have been working in Vermont and Maine. And so,
Okay.
yes, they've been working with other school districts to upgrade their HVAC system. I do want you to know that I will sign it, if the board allows me to sign a contract. It will be contingent upon ESSER approval of this funds.
That would be good for that to be in there.
Thank you.
I'm asking for district. I want to use the ESSER. But
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Buses.
The buses. So you had touched on it a bit.
I just touched on it. Art has met with Mr. Dave and myself, and we talked about the needs that we have with transportation. As you know, this past year, running up and down some of the secondary roads, it really has taken a toll on our buses, and especially our older buses. We have two buses that are old. They were, I believe, might have been the original ones that we leased like 11 years ago, and then we bought them. So we're afraid they're not going to pass inspection. And we constantly put money into them, and we can't do that anymore. We don't want to. So buses are very costly. Buses are hard to find at the moment because there's a lot of shortages with vehicles and et cetera. We were able to put one bus into the ESSER grant, and that has already been approved. We found one bus that would meet our specification, and I believe the price was $97,000. And the other bus we would have to put on order, and it probably wouldn't be delivered until November, but we have to get something on order for next year. We would also want to put cameras on the bus and a few other items, and that's why the bus is a little bit more, so it'd be $101,000. We use our buses constantly. We have, I believe, 11 large buses and 3 mini buses, and we certainly, Art says it's imperative that we go ahead and start looking at this. Shelley?
So one, what are the pictures that I'm looking at here?
That
Just a
would be,
picture of our buses?
that would be the bus that we could pay for using the ESSER funds. It's already
So
there.
this is the
It's in
newer
May.
bus.
I'm sorry.
This is the newer
A
bus?
new bus, yes.
And-
It's one that we could, at this point in time, purchase.
So we're 2 months out from when we voted when the district voted for the budget. I specifically remember having a conversation in the cafeteria about this one bus being put into the budget. I believe that I had also rambled on that evening about how towns are having to use their vehicles multiple years, blah, blah. And then the next budget conversation that we had, the bus was taken out of the budget. I never really questioned it. I didn't hear any other discussions. But I'm just wondering why 2 months, why we took the bus out if we're just going to place it back in 2 months after the voters voted on the budget that didn't have the bus in it.
The original proposal, when we talked about the buses, and I think that might have been December or whatever, it was not in the ESSER grant. From that,
I'm talking about, so I'm not talking about the ESSER grant bus that you just said that you got approval for. I'm just talking about the one bus that you want to have that money taken out of the budget.
out
That's,
of the budget. We had really, really hoped that we could go another year with our bus. Having one bus out of ESSER would certainly put one newer bus into the fleet. And it was really hope, we anticipated and had hoped that we could go another year without that additional bus. But because of the wear and tear, it's gotten to the point that we really can use that bus. If we don't have that secondary bus, that second one, I know Art said that it would impact his ability to do some of the sports games. Like for instance, right now, instead of sending 2 buses out, he sometimes will send one bus to 2 different locations with the teams because he doesn't have that extra bus at the moment.
I guess you're not gonna be able to answer it for me, but I'm confused as to why only 2 months after the voters approved that we're talking about a bus that was taken out of the budget to begin with. If it was that dire and someone knew it was that dire and that it wasn't gonna make it a year, I'm not sure why we wouldn't have just put it in there.
I really think that the answer to that is Route 12.
I really think that the state said that the route to take was not the back roads. So I don't really want to get into those discussions. But I really find it hard to believe that we had a bus and that those back roads are what demolished it in less than 2 months.
Jamie.
So I will admit that I don't know the size of our bus fleet anymore. I was probably the last person here that ordered a whole fleet 11 years ago. I think we ordered 22 buses 11 years ago, brand new. So I'm curious what the size of the fleet is now that we're needing. Because it sounds as if, and I have a little background on this, so it sounds as if you're putting one in the ESSER fund, so maybe that's the one that got carved out of the budget, I don't know. And then it sounds as if this one, other second one is, for whatever reason, perhaps worse off now than it was 2 months ago, I don't know, wasn't enough. And if it is, then they're looking to pull that out of regular daily service and maybe use it just for trips, because daily service puts more wear and tear on it. I think that my suggestion might be, perhaps, would be to have the transportation director visit with us to perhaps answer some of the questions on the second one that we're looking to spend $100 and whatever thousand for. And it would seem to me that we're looking to ask to take that from surplus this year. I don't understand.
Yes,
Okay.
that's for sure. Just so you know, Jamie, we have 17 full-size buses
Okay.
in the fleet, 3 minibuses.
Okay.
And we also have 16 drivers and 3 spares at the moment. And the bus, it was our anticipation that we would try to get one from the ESSER. We thought these 2 buses could go another year, because what we, after the lease was over, we kept the buses for 2, maybe 3 years after that.
It was an 8-year lease, so I don't know what happened. But
Yeah, we kept the
kept them
buses.
5, it sounds like, yeah. well,
Again,
three, okay.
And then we decided that we would go out and look at maybe joining a consortium with Keene and other districts and have an outside company come in and actually run the bus company for us. And that didn't, it cost us more money. So last year or the year before, we went out and purchased our buses. And the idea is that we purchased new buses as well as some older buses that weren't that old and made it very, very affordable. we had anticipated that these two buses would be used more for sports, for additional runs, or, so they weren't going to be used on a daily basis as the main buses for the routes. But because of things that are happening, it's really time to look at it. If we decide not to do that second bus out of the district funds, it will impact us next year when we have to do an extra run. We won't have that spare bus, because right now, from my understanding, is if one bus breaks down or gets stuck or whatever, we have that spare bus, which is the older bus, we pull into service. And so it's just gonna, it's gonna really curtail some of the opportunities that we have to really make sure that we can run all of our buses and provide all the services. And I do want you to know that our transportation director was planning to be here, but unfortunately he's sick today and was not able to attend.
Okay, thank you.
I think it would be helpful to get a report from our, like, for me, I'd be interested to know how much money are we spending to maintain this bus that is in disrepair? Because then you can wrap your head around, like, all right, if we're gonna spend $10,000 the next year or two to maintain this bus, then that is just throwing that money away if that can be put towards the purchase of a new bus. Who is making the call on whether or not it passes inspection? Do we do the repairs of our buses at the bus barn
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, we do.
So any of that information, is it $500? Is it $5,000?
I was looking to see. I know that he has called me a couple of times. Once we had to put in another gas tank, and there's been significant repairs in this bus. But again, I don't have all of those figures in front of me. And if you would like, I'm more than happy to make sure that I give you additional information about the cost, trying to keep that bus up. We do have our own mechanic here in our garage. He's been excellent to do all the repairs. But again, you're buying pieces and equipment, and that's what the cost is. And sometimes you can't get the equipment here sooner. So what he does is he'll take it off another bus and put it on until he can get that replacement part, and then do it again. We're kind of mucky back and forth. And that's not really a very good way of really running your bus transportation. That's the heart of our district, to get students to school and to the vocational programs and also to the sports. And it's been difficult. I know there's been parents that have written to me, and they're very concerned that they can't get the bus, for transportation for the sports at the high school. And it means that their students can't be involved in the sports. So it is an issue for us. We have just barely gotten by.
I think it would be good also to just get a rundown of like what the fleet is and the expected lifespan of each bus. Because, if we have this conversation again a year from now on potentially another,
You may.
that we're not saying, hey, we just bought a new bus, and then another year, we just bought a new bus. So,
The idea was that would be rolling.
Right.
That we constantly would have to get new buses, at least one a year or one or two every other year.
but that we are aware ahead of time and it's not a surprise. I think, it's just planning for the demise of these buses. Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I have questions, because we used to have 22 full-size buses, now we only have 17. So I'm curious why we downsized in the first place. That's one of my questions. And so I have a host of questions that I would like to be able to email, and then maybe you can gather the data.
Sure.
I think right now, if there's one that's absolutely available, that doesn't have to be ordered, and it fits in the ESSER, that we let that go and buy it, because I know how long it takes to get these. And the prices are going up every day. It's ridiculous.
If we were to do that, I would just like a note put in that we're approving the ESSER Fund 1, and that we're tabling the budget one until we get some actual numbers, such as what Craig was talking about. It's very difficult to say, oh, a bus didn't pass inspection. Well, what does that mean? I've had cars that didn't pass inspection. Sometimes it's $1,000, other times it's 15,000, but if you don't know, it's hard to approve $102,000 based on what I have in front of me.
And Jamie, to answer your question about, only having 17 buses right now in our fleet, we did change some of our routes and we collapsed them. So that's one of the reasons why there are less buses.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll make sure to update the consent agenda for the approval of the bus that it is, the ESSER.
Using ESSER funds.
ESSER funds. Good to move on. All right. We are on new business.
Okay.
And the new business is the interim superintendent update. So,
I liked it. Thank you.
we'll see how to start this. So I'll give everybody like a little bit of a backstory here to the process. So we put out an ad for an interim superintendent. That was in March, Misty, maybe. We received, I'd say, 7 or 8 applications back. We had a committee that narrowed that down to 3 candidates. We had 3 board members that interviewed those 3 candidates, and we unanimously selected one of those candidates. So without further ado, that candidate we selected is Dr. Brendan Minahan, who is here with us tonight. So we're going to give him an opportunity to just speak to everyone. I did want to say, just as a small snapshot of what we were looking for. So we really wanted somebody that had a lot of experience, that showed an ability to work with his community, that cared deeply about his staff and the relationship with his staff. Most importantly, how he interacts with the students and the care that he shows for the students. So I had the pleasure of doing the reference checks for Dr. Minahan, and they were glowing. And the overarching theme that came from those was that he was a very caring man, and I think one person just said he's just a really nice guy. So we're really excited. We feel great about bringing him on. So I'll have you come up and introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about where you
Well, thank you. Where do I have to go over
We're
there?
gonna put you
Do you want a chair?
In the center?
In the
Yeah, I'll
center.
grab one of the chairs there. Marcus, right? Marcus will help me out. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Brendan. And I feel like you can see my bald spot, but that's life. That's the way it goes. I'm really happy because, as some of you know, I actually started my SAU career at Fall Mountain. And I know Craig used the word experience. That also means old. And so, yes, I have been an assistant for a short time and a superintendent for a long time. I seem to have an affinity to the western part of the state. I left Fall Mountain as an assistant to go to Sunapee when they started their own SAU. So I was the first superintendent ever in the little town of Sunapee, which is
I don't know what they were thinking. I was a young person, never been a superintendent, but it was a good time. As I said to the committee that had met with me, I'm really looking forward to making sure that when you go out to do your search next year, people are like, awesome, I want to be in Fall Mountain, you know, as superintendent, and that you get the best candidate you can get. I see that sort of as my role, to make sure that that happens. We have all lived through COVID. We're still living through COVID. And so we will continue to work through that, right, in those aspects. But we have to get back to educating our kids too. I'm not saying that people haven't, but it's been very stressful on people. I know both teachers, staff, and kids, you know, I mean, I was seeing someplace, I can't remember which town, they had their first in-person prom in 3 years, you know. Now, we had ours out in an aircraft hangar, so we had one last year, but you had to be pretty fancy to figure out how to pull that off. So the more we can get back to normal, the more we can focus on the education of our children, the more I can find out the different back roads that are safer, the better off, you know, we'll all be. So, you know, the other stuff, the stuff about budgets, the stuff about curriculum, we have great people in place that do those things. That's their job, you know, running the schools, that's their job. And my job is to support them in that and to make sure that the district as a whole runs well. I'm looking forward to that. I also, as an aside, really like Dunkin' Donuts coffee, so I'm glad that there is none on my route home or to work now. I really feel like that will save a lot of cash. Some people might not get the tips they used to get, but that's okay. That's okay too. So, so I don't know if there's anything, Craig, that you'd like me to hit on. As I told you, I mean, I just am what I am. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes whatever. You know?
No, and you know, you had mentioned it, but I think, you know, for the community, your outlook on wanting to help us in the process of finding our long-term superintendent is also what we're looking for. And you know, we want to have the opportunity in the fall to open up the full search, to get the community involved, to get you know, other administrators and staff involved and all of that. And again, your outlook in that is great and exactly what we're looking for.
Well, and the key not to forget is, sorry you decided to come here today, but it's Marcus, right? We're here for Marcus and the other 1,000 kids. And sometimes we get stuck in the minutia of things, but sorry, man, you're why we're here. So,
Well, I mean, I'm glad that I'm why you're here.
yeah, appreciate that. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Brendan. All I'll say is welcome home.
Well, yeah, but you moved the house, you changed the locks. How am I supposed to know where to go anymore? So, well, you guys know, the SAU was in Charlestown, which is the one that I spent my time in the basement in. So.
We can always maybe discuss bringing it back to Charlestown.
We sold the building.
I was gonna say, is the house still available?
Alyssa has contacts. She could find a building.
Well, even if it's just the basement, I could go there periodically, see if I feel better.
I think you will very much like the building that we have now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tour was very nice. It's a very nice place. So.
I will tell a little bit of an anecdotal story here, but you had mentioned that you ran into a grandmother of a student in T-Bird or something in Newport, and she came up to you and, you know, she was commenting on something that you had done with her grandson or granddaughter, and, you know, to her, it was this remarkable thing, and to you almost didn't remember it, but it was because that was just the way that you conduct yourself on a daily basis. So to somebody else, when your actions and your behavior are remarkable, but that's just your daily, that's, you know, really a great thing. And you weren't even telling us that story to convey that message, but that was what I received from that message. and that little story. And again, for you, it was just this little anecdotal story, but it's meaningful. And I think that's the type of people that we aspire our Marcuses to be. Yeah.
Exactly. If you want to sit here, you can come right up, it's all good.
So no, I'll say thank you. And if anybody has any questions.
Oh, I thought I saw your hand going up. Watch subtle movements.
I'm really grateful that tonight is happening, because having to keep this as a secret from some of my friends that live in other towns has been very difficult. So welcome aboard. Our communities, I think, look forward to you. And I think this year is going to be interesting and maybe festive.
Should be festive. Interesting has so many connotations. And I have lived probably all of them, but festive is good. So we'll go for
Let's
festive.
just use festive then.
Festivus for the rest of us. We're up.
All right, so
Now, am I allowed to go back to my Hubble?
you
Thank
we
you.
did have a time where we had everybody that was still sitting in front of us, like 5 feet in front of us. Is a little awkward, but yeah.
Thank you.
Take your seat.
I felt like we should have had balloons.
Yeah.
A banner of some
Now,
sort.
just procedurally, are we voting on this now? So do I have a motion to approve Dr. Brendan Minahan as the interim superintendent for the 22-23 school year?
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Now, I gotta ask, for the purpose of my notes, how do you spell your last name?
Mine, or you want to pick somebody else?
Yours.
All right, so we'll go with mine. My last name is Minahan, Minninihan.
You're this close to getting it right.
You know what? You wouldn't be the first not to.
So I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with section B edited as ESSER grant bus only.
I'd like to pull it out. I have questions about the sports injuries and pull it out of consent agenda.
Okay. So we pull that down.
We have a second.
He wants to pull that off. Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pulling that out.
Pulling it out, do we need that?
It's okay.
Okay.
It's out there.
I think we could just pull it out.
So do we discuss that, or do we approve the consent agenda?
Approve the
With it
consent
out.
agenda first.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the sports injuries pulled out
I'll make it.
and the
Yes,
bus
I did.
being ESSER only?
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I
did.
also added that language to the air quality assessment, so.
Okay.
Did I have a first, to have a motion?
Shelley made the
Shall I
motion.
make the motion?
So I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, questions?
What's sports injury?
Yes, okay, we're on to that now. So we're on. I just have a question about, so we're coming up on, this is the first reading, we have a second reading, which will probably on our next meeting, which only leaves a month for this to take place, because I don't believe all the people here are 12-month contract employees. Right? Is the athletic director a 12-month contract employee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the athletic trainers?
but we do have an athletic trainer.
Sorry?
We actually hire a company from Keene to be our athletic trainer.
Are the
Contract
school
with
nurses,
Met.
are the school nurses 12-month contract employees?
No.
They're involved in this, creating this policy, and I just want to make sure we're not asking them to work outside of their contract.
If we do, they usually have additional days listed as available for summer work, right, for summer work if they need to. But in speaking to our head nurse, whom we met with, Alyssa, myself, Lori, and Misty, last Friday, I think, yeah. And in following up with our athletic director, I believe they're pretty much very well underway on all of the pieces that go along with this.
That's all. I just had concern. We were asking
Sure.
people to work outside of contract.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make sure that was happening. So you've answered my questions. And
Of the additional written protocols, that part. The
Yes.
additional written protocols. Okay.
So you'll have a second
We
reading
have,
anyways.
yeah, we have that in draft, Sarah, we have that in draft, and so we just got it, like this morning, yesterday. It was very recent, so we're gonna take a look at it and then send it around to everybody, so you can look at it prior to the next reading.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. And then we also found out what wet bulb globe temperature means, but I'm surprised that nobody asked that question.
I know what it means.
Oh, you do? Oh, very good, okay.
Science teachers.
Come on, we were ready for the question.
All right, what does it mean?
Okay, it's information that is provided by the NHIAA in their handbook and on their website. But you can expand it because you probably know more than that. But anyway,
That's kind of good.
yeah, interesting. Okay.
All right, off we go.
So do we need a motion now to accept?
I think so for
Yeah,
that
so now
specific
we need,
thing.
Make a motion to accept that's for first reading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To accept for first reading, the sports injury JLCJA policy. Second, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Reading off the last word of the sentence.
On to the action agenda,
Yeah, but- and
which
then I just
is
jump all
the
over.
Goshen tuition agreement. And are you presenting anything with that?
Every year, we go back and we sign, the board approves and we sign off on a tuition agreement with Goshen. As you know, they don't have any schools, but they have students. And students are allowed to go to a school of their choice. Sometimes they attend the Newport School, sometimes Fall Mountain, sometimes Claremont. There is a set rate that we would expect from them. If our rate is higher, then students would have to pay the difference. We have negotiated this rate with Goshen in the past. It has worked out very well. I think currently we have 4 students for Goshen at the present time. And there is, if you read the contract, there is provisions if you have a student that needs a one-to-one aid or additional services or additional transportation. So it's basically, it protects the district, and it's something that we have done for a long period of time. Once a student is accepted into Fall Mountain, we will continue supporting them as long as they want to come. And we also have another tuition agreement with the school district that has worked out very well.
You need a motion for that, Lauren?
I'm sorry.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, you do. Yeah, to accept it. We have to.
So it says they're allowed to come here K through 12, and they don't have any schools in Goshen?
No, we have, I can't vote on this because I work for Goshen. I'm their special ed director. So we have no schools. And so we tuition all of our students to.
So where do the K to 8 students go?
They-
But we don't have any.
A lot of our students currently go to Newport Many of our students are, there's, some students go to Sunapee, and more and more students are going to Claremont,
Okay, so they can choose,
but they can choose.
like,
I have a student at Unity, I have students at Newport, I have students in Sunapee, I've got them all, they're all over the place.
okay, has it ever come up that one of them wants to go to any one of our district schools? How would that work? Like if it's a Charlestown school or a Walpole school, can they choose within the district?
They would pay that tuition rate, and
They pay
that
that tuition
tuition rate would be credited to the town that the student is going to school in.
Thank you.
I had the same question though, I think, was how do the parents choose whether they want to have, let's say they have a kindergartner. How do they choose between Ackworth School or also primary or Sarah Porter? How do they choose which one they're going to go to?
Kindergarten is only in Alston,
Um,
but their first grade.
You gotta have a kindergarten, number one.
But anyways, they do have basically a school fair where they invite our school, our guidance counselor, and even our CT director to go and present and talk and provide information to parents. And I know that happened, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Claremont is invited, Newport's invited, as well as Fall Mountain. So, and parents are pretty well familiar with the area schools as well. Jane?
So
Jamie?
there is a method to figure out what the rates would be for each of the individual towns, schools. And to Lori's point, there's also a method by which the town would directly receive the benefit of that revenue against assessment. So, and that's lined out in the state of New Hampshire. It's not an RSA because it's not a law, but they give you guidance on how to figure out what that tuition rate would be without the transportation costs or the special education costs. There's certain carve outs to get to the rate.
I think the rate is in the agreement.
It is an agreement.
Is that for the high school or for the all? K
No,
through 12?
she included high school, middle school, and elementary.
Yeah, and if
Is
there's
the
special
same
ed
rate
classes,
for all? Okay.
No,
I believe.
no, it's not the same rate for all.
It was broken out.
Okay, so you're doing it based on an average across all
Yeah.
5 schools?
Most of the time is the high school.
High school rate.
Yeah.
So,
Students.
but to their point, I'm sorry, I thought I read through it. Obviously, I didn't absorb it because I read it too quickly. So to their point though, for the elementary schools, what is that rate based on? Do you know, is it an average of all of the elementary expenditure?
I can't tell you exactly how it was formulated. I believe
Okay.
they went and looked at the costs that would be for each one of the different area schools.
Yeah.
And that was a rate, working with the Department of Ed, that they thought would be presentable or acceptable. And
So it's probably an average.
It
across.
probably is. That I'm not really totally sure on. We did this last year and the year before. It worked out really well. We get verification that the student is actually a resident of the town. The town signs off on it, and we just send the tuition bill to the town twice a year.
I had one other question. And this, it's not really related, but it might be. Do we still pick up students at the Leominster line? We used to pick up students, tuition
used
students
to.
at the Leominster line.
They can meet our bus and they can come, but they have their own bus that's making the
Oh, okay.
transportation on a
Alright.
daily basis to our high school.
But if they wanted to jump on board one of the buses, if their parents got them to one that was on the Goshen line, would we allow that?
We would allow any students to ride our bus,
Okay,
but we're not going to go.
we're not going to Goshen.
above. They're also, if they're at the high school level, eligible to attend the CTE program, so that includes Keene as well, and River Valley. And there is an adjustment through the AB1 system
Sure.
for the cost.
Go ahead.
I have one observation and a question. The first paragraph, it still says sample school district.
This is a draft.
I don't
We're
know,
gonna
I
be
don't know.
filling
Make
in-
sure-
we're not gonna ask anybody to sign this. This is basically a draft. This is the same draft that they actually sent to other
That's
school
fine.
districts
Everything else
as
is
well.
filled in and that was, I just want to make sure it got caught.
No, no.
This wasn't over. Catch it. So my other question is about the tuition. Are we assured that the tuition rate covers all of the costs and that residents of this district aren't somehow subsidizing Goshen students? I don't, it's a new guy question, it's what it is.
I don't think we're subsidizing the cost. It actually is a benefit to our district. The extra revenue is attributed to our whole budget. And we have done this for a long period of time. If you have space in a class, if we have a student that needs to go into a very specialized program and we don't have the space, there's no requirement for us to add on to our program or to take the student. We take students because we have the space and available, and it's a benefit for them as well as for us.
Which we had that situation this year where I was looking for a placement and I was looking for a home and I couldn't find one. So, yeah. Well, I'm just full, so.
Shelley, then Jamie.
Oh, no, go ahead, Jamie.
No, go ahead, we thought good fit.
No, because I'm gonna do a motion.
Oh. I was just gonna say, that when you do if you take the dollar amount of what it costs to run the schools and then you divide it by the student count, a lot of people will look at that number and sometimes will question, why is that higher than maybe a tuition amount? And the reason is because you're not providing certain, opportunities, right? So you carve out the cost of the transportation that's attributed to that school. You also carve out any of the special education costs that might be attributed to that school. So there are certain carve outs, capital expenditures or carve outs. And so if you want to go back and do like a calculation or somebody asks you that question, it's important to know that there are carve outs.
Thank you. I wanted to be sure I can answer that question.
Yes, absolutely. It gets-
Someone ever asked me.
Gets asked a lot.
Right.
I make a motion to accept the Goshen tuition agreement 2022 and 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
All right. On to committee reports. Anybody that has a report to make? Amy?
Yes, Alyssa and myself have a report to make. We met with Misty and Lori and our nursing staff lead, and we worked on the 4 that you see there. And next up for the next meeting, we have, I think, 7 that are going to be coming up. They're all transportation related. Alyssa, would you like to add?
I don't think there's too much more to add, except that Misty had us very well organized and ready to go, and we were able to just look at what we needed to do.
That's why we were hoping, I think, that you'll see on the agenda that we're hoping to add 1 meeting so that we can close up all of the ones that are sitting open from this fiscal year. So when we move into the next fiscal year, we're just working on the new policies coming out.
We have a report for the tech committee.
Okay.
There will be a tour of the River Valley Technical Center on the 13th of May, Friday, at 7:30. So
Yeah.
in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So you got to get up early.
No, I could do AM.
Yeah,
can't we?
yeah. Yeah. So meeting 7:30 a.m. at River Valley in Springfield. So
That was the 13th,
the 13th, yes. He sent it to me as the 23rd and I was like, I don't think so. That's not a Friday. He was like, oh, big fingers. I messed up. So, yeah. So, yeah. So we'll be doing that. That'll be great. And we had a board meeting and things are going well there. They are negotiating a new teacher's contract and process. It's very interesting, but, so that is going along, and, the, current, director for the, Vermont, online program, I can't remember the name of it, but, it's gone from me.
No, it's,
I can't think of it. What is
yeah,
it?
I know, I can't.
It's just
either.
gone. Anyway, he's been there and he's brought the program along so far. He's done such a great job with it. Just incredible. It's a great program. But he's retiring. And so, but they have,
Is that their version of Relax or something?
yes, their version of Relax, yes. And the whole state is really, it's really, I mean, there are other programs around the state that kind of are, but they're doing it out of, they're really following what he's doing there. So it's really great. And they're doing some incredible stuff there with this remote learning stuff, where they're doing a lot of teaching of teachers on how to do remote learning, which was great during the pandemic, for people to be able, for teachers in Vermont to be able to come and learn how to teach remotely, because it doesn't just, you don't just say, oh, I'm going to teach remotely now. It's a whole different thing. So he's done a great job with that. But so he's going to kind of continue on with the whole, because you can't just retire, you kind of keep your fingers and stuff. So he's going to be doing he's going to be doing a lot of consulting with remote learning and stuff. So they've got a new person already hired who's going to do a great job too. So yeah, so it's going along really well.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Scott Farr called me up,
Yes.
and when I answered my phone, the first thing he said to me was, "This is not a telemarketer."
Yes, Scott is great. Scott's great.
Okay, that's different. Don't get a lot of those phone calls.
No, Scott's a good guy. Yeah. So the program over there is really good. We'll have a good time. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I look forward to going down and touring Keene's program, because I haven't been down to Keene's program in a long time. So look forward to seeing that.
Do you have a tour set up yet?
I don't have one set up yet, but
Would like you to do that.
Oh, one other thing, Deb Connell canceled my tour of the CTE place here and never rescheduled.
We'll make sure that
She
happens.
might have forgot about it.
yeah, the one for, she got sick for
Yeah,
that
she
day,
was
right?
sick
Yeah.
or something.
yeah.
But she never rescheduled, so.
If you come Thursday, the 11th, when we have the job fair, it's going to be here. And that's also part of the tour. You'll be able to get into the greenhouse, and there's still a lot of flowers yet to buy.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Should I ask her about it or?
I'll send her an email.
That's great.
There's your signal.
Okay. So Marcus, our student rep, has a report of his own, I'm told.
Apparently I do.
All right, let's hear it.
Obviously, everything's winding down for this school year. Athletics are sort of getting into those last couple games before the playoffs. Clubs are finishing up the final project, and the senior class, we just had our prom, and we're finishing up planning graduation, ready to sort of get headed out in about a month. So that's pretty much everything that's happening student-wise.
Did I hear Gordon congratulate you on prom king? Did I hear that
Yes,
correctly?
you did.
All right,
You did.
well, congratulations. We're very selective in how we,
I did it. I thought it might be a little bit showy.
that's why you're the king.
Yeah, it's really a humble position.
Yeah, exactly. Great, well, congrats on that. That's wonderful.
Your prom was very exciting.
Oh, yes, there was a slight fire department
Yeah, little
that had to get called.
little break, and then you got to go back in.
Yeah.
Us old people are in bed. I got a call from Lori, and it's like, what is happening right now?
My dad's the assistant chief, so I see.
It was
his
9:30,
Truck
that's-
come down the road just, Mike Flynn.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, no, the fire truck comes, and his personal truck comes right behind it.
Wow.
Like, wait, what's
You
going
think
on
you were in
here?
trouble or what?
That's always the worry when I see this.
As long as the cruiser's not behind So the facilities committee already kind of gave our update, but one thing we are going to be, Bill Botting is going to be bringing us a quote for like the total asbestos abatement. So I think that'll be good information to have, even for maybe just, we have a progressive abatement plan, but knowing exactly how much the total thing will be good information to have. Other information, we have a board workshop June 13th, and then another board meeting July 11th.
Are we doing a thing?
A retreat?
Yeah.
Yes.
When?
We're still working on it. I still need to hear from everybody else their schedules.
Ah.
So I'm thinking late July, early August might be a good time for everybody. What's this one?
This is a retreat where it's gonna be festive
Yes, we talked about that, right?
and hardworking, festive and hardworking.
We can do that.
With Dunkin' Donuts.
And adult beverages.
No,
Yeah, workshops mostly are just
There's not as much of an agenda.
Yeah.
It's really specific.
Working on something.
Well, we usually have a couple things. you can-
Yeah, but it's not as formal. There's usually not as many people there.
we're a pretty informal group.
I don't know. I mean, I think I've got really the formalities and procedure stuff down to it.
You're kidding, I mean, considering your first and second meeting, you've got this down,
Getting
pretty
done.
much.
Oh, definitely.
Do we have a non-public tonight?
Do we have a
No.
non-public tonight? I don't think so. No.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
I have one follow-up question. Well, I'm not-
Oh, yes.